Let me ask you something. When you picture retirement, what do you actually see? Maybe it's grandkids and golf and sleeping past 7. What you probably don't picture is watching your life savings drop 40% and being forced by law to keep withdrawing from it anyway. That's the 401k trap, and it springs shut at exactly the wrong moment. You've spent decades doing everything the financial advisors told you. Contribute early. Get the match. Let it grow. And that advice isn't wrong, exactly. It just leaves out what happens when you flip from building wealth to actually needing it. The rules change completely, and most people don't find out until it's too late. I'm going to walk you through the 4 traps hiding in your 401k and show you how to escape them while you still can. For the past 40 years, the 401k has been sold to Americans as the golden ticket to retirement. And honestly, that marketing worked brilliantly. Today, there's over $7 trillion sitting in 401k accounts across the country. Millions of people check their balances, watch the numbers climb, and feel like they're crushing it. But here's what most people don't realize. The 401k was never actually designed to be your primary retirement vehicle. Back in 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Act that created Section 401. But they weren't trying to replace pensions. They were creating a supplemental savings option, mostly for executives who wanted to defer some compensation. The 401k was supposed to be the cherry on top of a retirement sundae that already included a pension and Social Security. Then companies realized something convenient. 401k plans are way cheaper than pensions. A pension means the company is on the hook for your retirement, no matter what happens to markets. A 401k? That risk transfers entirely to you. Your parents might have had a pension, you got a 401k and a pat on the back. By the 1,990 seconds, the shift was nearly complete. Companies were freezing pension plans left and right, and the 401k went from supplemental perk to primary retirement strategy for most American workers. The financial industry responded by building an entire ecosystem around it. Target date funds, automatic enrollment, set it and forget it, marketing. And it felt safe. You contribute, your employer matches, the market goes up over time, and compound interest does its thing. What could possibly go wrong? Here's the thing. During the accumulation phase, when you're putting money in every paycheck, this system actually works pretty well. Market drops? Great. You're buying shares at a discount. Your time horizon is long, so you can ride out volatility. A crash in your 30 seconds or 40 seconds is just a buying opportunity. You might even smile when markets tank because you're getting more shares for your money. But here's where the comfortable lie starts to crack. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, roughly 70% of American workers now rely on defined contribution plans like 401ks as their primary source of retirement savings. Not supplemental, primary. And most of those workers have somewhere between 80 and 90% of their total retirement wealth concentrated in these tax-deferred accounts. That concentration feels fine when retirement is 30 years away. The problem is that the rules of the game change completely the moment you stop working. And most people don't figure this out until they're already deep into retirement, watching their account do things they never expected. Think about what you've been told your whole working life. Contribute early. Get the match. Don't touch it. Let compound interest work. Check, 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 check. You did everything right. But nobody explained what happens when you flip from accumulation mode to distribution mode. Nobody mentioned that the same volatility that helped you build wealth can absolutely devastate you when you're pulling money out instead of putting it in. The 401k isn't broken. Exactly. It's just incomplete. A tool that works beautifully for one half of the retirement equation and can become a trap during the other half. All of this works great until you actually need to use the money. And that's where the trap gets set. Here's a term that might completely change how you think about retirement. Sequence of returns risk. I know that sounds like something from a finance textbook you'd never read, but stay with me. This is the first trap, and understanding it could literally save your retirement. When you're in your working years, putting money into your 401k every paycheck, the order of market returns doesn't really matter. If the market averages 7% over 30 years, you end up in roughly the same place whether the good years come early or late. Time smooths everything out, but the moment you retire and start withdrawing, the math changes completely. Suddenly, the sequence matters enormously. Let me paint you a picture with 2 people, both retiring with exactly $500,000 in their 401k. Both experience the exact same market returns over the next 15 years. Same average, same total. The only difference is the order those returns arrive. Person A retires in early 2007, right before the financial crisis. In their first 2 years of retirement, while they're pulling out 4% annually to pay the bills, the market drops nearly 40%. Their $500,000 becomes $300,000 almost overnight. But they still need income, so they keep withdrawing. They're selling shares at rock-bottom prices just to keep the lights on. Person B retires in 2009, right after the crash. They get those same returns, just in reverse order. The big gains come early, the losses come later. By the time the bad years hit, their portfolio has grown enough to absorb the damage. After 15 years, Person A and Person B had identical average returns. But Person A ran out of money. Person B still had over $400,000. Same returns. Same withdrawal rate. Completely different outcomes. That's sequence of returns risk. Here's where this gets really painful for 401k holders specifically. When you're withdrawing from a tax-deferred account, you're not just selling investments. You're also triggering taxable income. So during a crash, you're forced to sell low, realize losses at the worst possible time, and still pay taxes on the distribution. It's like getting charged admission to watch your own financial house burn down. During accumulation, financial advisors love to talk about dollar cost averaging. You're buying shares at different prices over time, which smooths out your average cost. Great strategy. But in retirement, you're doing the exact opposite. You're selling shares at different prices over time, and if those early prices are crash prices, you're locking in losses that your portfolio may never recover from. The research on this is sobering. A study from the Center for Retirement Research found that someone who retires at the start of a bear market may need to cut their spending by 30% just to have the same chance of not running out of money as someone who retires during a bull market. 30%. That's the difference between traveling and staying home, between helping your grandkids with college and needing help yourself. But sequence risk is just the first trap. There are at least 3 more mechanisms working against you, and they compound each other. The second trap is something you're probably doing right now without even realizing it. Pull up your 401k allocation. Go ahead, I'll wait. What do you actually see in there? If you're like most Americans, you're either in a target date fund or some version of a stock-heavy portfolio that someone told you was appropriate for your age. And during your working years, that aggressive allocation made total sense. You had decades for the market to recover from any dips. But here's what the target date fund marketing doesn't emphasize. Even the funds designed for people about to retire are still heavily weighted towards stocks. Take a typical 2025 target date fund designed for someone retiring this year. You might assume it's conservative, right? Safe? Most of these funds still hold somewhere between 40 and 50% in equities. Some are even higher. That means if the market drops 40%, your supposedly retirement-ready fund could lose 20% of its value in a matter of months. And you're supposed to be living off this money. The industry calls this the glide path, the gradual shift from stocks to bonds as you approach retirement. But the glide path doesn't glide far enough, fast enough. You're still sitting on a pile of market risk at exactly the moment when market risk becomes most dangerous. This is concentration risk. Not concentration in a single stock, but concentration in a single asset class, in a single account type, with a single set of rules governing when and how you can access it. Now let's add the third trap, fee drag. This one's sneaky because you almost never see it directly. The fees in your 401k don't show up as a line item on your statement. They just quietly eat away at your returns. Year after year, decade after decade. The average 401k charges somewhere between 0.5% and 1% in total fees. Some plans are worse, especially at smaller companies. That might not sound like much. Let me show you what it actually costs. If you have $500,000 in your 401k, earning 7% annually, a 1% fee doesn't just cost you $5,000 this year. It costs you that $5,000 plus everything that $5,000 would have grown into over the next 20 years. Run the math over a full retirement, and the difference between a 1% fee plan and a 0.1% index fund can easily exceed $100,000. That's not a rounding error. That's years of retirement income. I remember looking at my own 401k statement about 5 years ago and realizing I had no idea what I was actually paying in fees. It took me an hour of digging through plan documents to figure out the total cost. When I finally calculated it, I felt like I'd been paying a tax I didn't know existed. And there's one more trap that most people don't even think about until they're already caught in it. The tax time bomb. Here's the part where the IRS enters the conversation. Remember all those years you were celebrating your tax deduction every time you contributed to your 401k? That felt good, right? Free money from the government? The bill is coming due. Your 401k contributions were tax deferred, not tax free. That's a distinction that sounds minor but changes everything. Every dollar you pull out of that account in retirement gets taxed as ordinary income, not capital gains rates. Ordinary income. The same rate as if you'd earned it working. Now, if you're thinking you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, that's the conventional wisdom. But the conventional wisdom is often wrong. Add up your Social Security benefits, your pension if you have one, your 401k withdrawals, and any other income. Many retirees find themselves in the exact same bracket they were in while working. Some end up higher. But here's where it gets really ugly. Required minimum distributions. Starting at age 73, the IRS requires you to withdraw a minimum amount from your traditional 401k and IRA accounts every year. Whether you need the money or not, the amount is calculated based on your account balance and your life expectancy. The larger your account, the larger your required withdrawal, and every dollar of that withdrawal is taxable income. Here's the trap. The RMD calculation is based on your account balance from December 31st of the previous year. So imagine this. On December 31st, 2025, your 401k is worth $800,000. The market has been strong, you're feeling good. Your RMD for 2026, calculated on that $800,000 balance, comes out to roughly $31,000. Then January 2026 arrives, and the market drops 35% over the next 8 months. Your $800,000 is now worth $520,000, but your RMD is still $31,000, calculated on the old, higher balance. You're legally required to sell $31,000 worth of investments at crash prices and pay taxes on the full amount. The IRS doesn't care if the market is down. The IRS doesn't care if selling now locks in your losses. The IRS doesn't care if this withdrawal will deplete your account faster than you planned. The rules are the rules. And it gets worse. That $31,000 RMD gets added to your Social Security benefits and any other income. Depending on your total, this could push you into a higher tax bracket, trigger taxes on your Social Security benefits, increase your Medicare premiums, and affect your eligibility for certain deductions. This is the tax time bomb. You spent 30 years building a tax-deferred account, watching it grow, feeling like you were winning, but you weren't avoiding taxes. You were deferring them to a future date when you'd have the least control over how and when they get paid. You did what you were told. The rules just weren't explained. So now you understand the 4 traps. Let me show you what happens when they all spring at once. Let me paint you a picture of what a crash actually looks like from inside this trap. It's January 2026. You're 67 years old. You retired 6 months ago after 35 years of diligently contributing to your 401k. Your account balance on December 31st was $800,000, and you felt proud. You did everything right. Maxed out contributions, got the employer match every year, stayed invested through the volatility. Your plan was simple. Withdraw 4% annually, about $32,000 to supplement Social Security. The math worked. You were going to be fine. Then February hits, and the market starts sliding. By April, your $800,000 is worth $640,000. You tell yourself it's temporary. Markets recover. Stay the course. That's what everyone says. But you still need income. You still need to pay the mortgage, cover healthcare premiums, buy groceries. So you sell shares to generate that $32,000. You're selling at 20% below where you planned. By August, the market has dropped 40% from its peak. Your $800,000 is now worth $480,000, and you've already pulled out $20,000 this year just to live. Here's where the traps start compounding. Your target date fund was still 45% stocks. That concentration meant you took the full hit. No bonds or cash cushion absorbed the blow. Trap 1. Sprung. The fees in your 401k keep charging, calculated as a percentage of your declining balance. They're still eating into your remaining shares that now need to recover even further just to get back to where you started. Trap 2. Compounding. And now April 2027 arrives. Tax time. That RMD calculated on your December 2025 balance of $800,000, the IRS wants roughly $31,000 withdrawn, whether you need it or not, whether the market has recovered or not. Your account is now worth $450,000 after a partial recovery, but you're legally required to sell another $31,000 at still depressed prices and pay ordinary income tax on every dollar. That RMD, combined with your Social Security benefits, pushes your total income high enough to trigger taxes on 85% of your Social Security. Your Medicare premiums jump. You're paying more in taxes during retirement than you did during some of your working years. By the end of 2027, 2 years into retirement, your $800,000 has become $380,000. Not because you made bad decisions, not because you panicked and sold at the bottom, because the system forced you to sell at the bottom while charging you fees and taxes along the way. This isn't a hypothetical worst-case scenario. This is almost exactly what happened to millions of Americans who retired in 2007 and 2008. Some went back to work, some moved in with their adult children, some are still working today, in their late 70s, because they never recovered. I know that's heavy, but the trap only works if you don't see it coming, and now you see it. Here's the good news you've been waiting for. The trap is real, but it's not inevitable. Once you understand how these mechanisms work, you can start building escape routes. And the earlier you start, the more options you have. The core principle is this. Diversification isn't just about spreading your money across different stocks. Real crash-proofing means diversifying across 3 dimensions: asset classes, tax treatments, and time. Most people only think about the first one. The second and third are what actually save you when markets collapse. Let me explain what I mean by tax treatment diversification. Right now, if you're like most Americans, the vast majority of your retirement savings sits in tax-deferred accounts. That's your traditional 401k and traditional IRA. Every dollar you pull out gets taxed as ordinary income. But there are 2 other buckets that play by completely different rules. The first is tax-free money. This is your Roth IRA and Roth 401k. You pay taxes on the money before it goes in. But withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. No taxes on the growth, no taxes on distributions, and no required minimum distributions during your lifetime. When the market crashes and you need income, you can pull from your Roth without triggering a taxable event or pushing yourself into a higher bracket. The second bucket is taxable money. Your regular brokerage account. You've already paid taxes on the contributions, and you pay capital gains taxes when you sell, but the rates are usually lower than ordinary income rates. And here's the key. If the market crashes, you can sell investments at a loss to generate tax deductions, offsetting gains elsewhere. In a tax-deferred account, losses are just losses. In a taxable account, losses can actually reduce your tax bill. Having money in all 3 buckets gives you withdrawal flexibility. In any given year, you can choose where to pull from based on market conditions, your tax situation, and your income needs. Market crashed? Pull from your Roth so you're not selling depreciated assets and creating taxable income. Market booming? Take from the taxable account and pay the lower capital gains rate. Need to manage your bracket to avoid Medicare surcharges? Pull strategically from each bucket. Now let's talk about time diversification. This is the buffer strategy that prevents forced selling during downturns. The idea is simple. Keep 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or short-term bonds outside your stock-heavy investments. When the market crashes, you don't touch your equities. You live off the buffer while your stocks recover. The final piece. Social Security is itself a form of crash protection. Those benefits are guaranteed, inflation-adjusted, and last your entire life. Delaying Social Security from 62 to 70 increases your benefit by roughly 76%. That higher guaranteed income means you're less dependent on your portfolio during downturns. Those are the principles. Now let me get specific about the moves you can make. The escape plan looks different depending on how much runway you have. If you're in your 40 seconds or early 50 seconds, you've got the most options and the most time to execute. Start Roth conversions now. This means taking money from your traditional 401k or IRA, paying taxes on it at today's rates, and moving it into a Roth where it grows tax-free forever. Yes, it hurts to write that check to the IRS voluntarily, but you're paying taxes at a rate you know and control rather than gambling on what rates will look like in 20 years. Most financial experts expect rates to go up given the federal deficit. Locking in current rates might be one of the smartest moves you make. While you're at it, look at your target date fund allocation. If you're 45 and your fund is still 80% stocks, that might have been appropriate in your 30 seconds, but it's time to think about whether you want that much volatility as retirement gets closer. Here's another move most people overlook. Roll over old 401k accounts from previous employers into an IRA you control. Your old employer's plan probably has limited options and higher fees. An IRA gives you access to virtually any investment, including ultra-low-cost index funds. That fee savings compounds dramatically. If you're in your late 50 seconds or 60 seconds, the math changes. You have less time for Roth conversions to pay off, but they can still make sense, especially if you're trying to reduce future RMDs. Run the numbers or work with a fee-only planner to figure out how much to convert each year without pushing yourself into a painfully high bracket. Your priority at this stage is building the buffer, 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash and short-term bonds. This is money you can live on during a crash without touching equities. It feels wasteful when the market is climbing. It's the thing that lets you sleep when headlines are screaming about collapse. Think carefully about Social Security timing. Every year you delay past full retirement age increases your benefit by 8% up to age 70. If you can afford to live off savings and let Social Security grow, that larger guaranteed check provides more crash protection for the rest of your life. For everyone, here's a critical exercise. Stress test your plan. Sit down with a spreadsheet and run the crash scenario on your own numbers. What happens if the market drops 40% in your first year of retirement? Can you survive on reduced withdrawals for 3 years? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, you know what to fix. I remember sitting at my kitchen table at 43, running these scenarios on my own finances. I'd been feeling confident until I saw what a badly timed crash would do. That uncomfortable afternoon changed everything about how I approached retirement. Knowing the plan prevents panic. And panic is what destroys portfolios. Your 401k isn't the enemy, the trap is. The 401k is a tool, and like any tool, it works brilliantly for some jobs and terribly for others. It's excellent for accumulating wealth during your working years, capturing employer matches, and deferring taxes while your income is high. But it was never designed to be your entire retirement strategy. It was supposed to be one piece of a larger puzzle. Somewhere along the way, most Americans started treating it like the whole picture. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we've covered. The 4-trap sequence of returns risk, concentration risk, fee drag, and the tax time bomb are real. They're built into the structure of how these accounts work. But they only destroy retirements when people don't see them coming. And now you see them. You're watching this before the next crash, not during it. That timing advantage is worth more than you realize. Every Roth conversion you do now is money you'll never have to sell at crash prices. Every dollar you move into your buffer is a month you can ride out a downturn without panic selling. Every fee you eliminate is compound growth you get to keep. I remember the exact moment this clicked for me. I was sitting at my kitchen table, actually running the numbers on what a 2008-style crash would do to my retirement plans. I'd been feeling pretty good about where I stood. Maxed out contributions every year, decent balance, target date fund doing its thing. Then I plugged in a 40% drop in year 1 of retirement, modeled out the RMDs, added in the fees, and watched my projected outcome get cut in half. It wasn't a fun afternoon, but it was the afternoon that changed everything. The next crash isn't a question of if. Markets have always crashed. They always will. What's not certain is when it happens and where you'll be standing when it does. Picture 2 people, both 67, both retiring this year. One has 90% of their savings in a traditional 401k, still heavily weighted towards stocks, no buffer, no Roth bucket, no plan. The other has money spread across tax-deferred, tax-free, and taxable accounts. 2 years of expenses in cash. Social Security delayed to maximize the guaranteed income. A stress-tested withdrawal strategy. The crash hits. Both watch their stock portfolios drop 40%. The first person starts selling at the bottom, takes their RMD from a devastated account, gets pushed into a higher bracket, lies awake at night doing math they don't like. The second person pulls from their buffer, lets stocks recover, keeps taxable income low, sleeps fine, maybe even buys more shares while they're cheap. Same crash, completely different outcomes. The only question is which one you're going to be, and the decisions you make in the next 6 months will determine the answer.